Hi, I'm Didier. Welcome to the lab in Paris at La Maison de Whisky. Today we're with Mathieu, and we're going to talk about French whiskey. So Mathieu runs the Fine Spirits shop over in Paris, and he also has a website, whiskyfrançais.com. So he's the French whiskey specialist here. And so tell me, do French people drink a lot of whiskey? Do we?
Oh yes, we sure do. We drink a lot of whiskey, with an average of 2.15 liters per person. So that's pretty huge. Just to compare, the Irish drink 1.24. So we do love whiskey, for sure.
Right. And so when did the French whiskey production actually start?
Strangely, it was late because we started distilling in 1983. And the first release was in 1987. It was a blend whiskey called WB. So W for whiskey, B for Breton. So it's happened in Brittany, which makes sense because Brittany has a Celtic heritage. And it was by the distillery named Waregem.
Okay, and today they're known for their brand Armorique, for example.
Yes, for Armorique you have to wait like 10 years more because it's in 1998. There is the first French single malt, and this is Waregem again with Armorique, who are starting the epic of French whiskies. Then the Alsacian follow. In 1999 we have a lot of Alsacian distillery beginning to distill whiskey. And La Lorraine and Corse, the island on the south of the France. And then in 2010 we have like a boom in the French whiskey, and now we are distilling pretty much everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 77 distilleries producing whiskey.
Wow. Right. So there are a lot of whiskey productions, and I mean in general this kind of feels like a big trend that's been happening for the last couple of years.
Yes, indeed. Firstly, because I think quality really increased. I mean, you can't compare the WB from 1987 with that kind of cask of Armorique. It will be like compare a cheap supermarket whiskey with Macallan. So it's two different worlds. There is another reason, I think. It's in a way, French whiskey is a good answer to the issue of our time. I mean, it's local, it's often organic. This is eco-friendly, so maybe it's also a good reason.
And the made in France is kind of popular too in general.
Yeah, we have a little bit of chauvinism and all that, so yeah, it's become trendy. But I think quality is the main criterion.
Okay. So speaking of quality, actually, the French do have a know-how in making spirits. What else do they bring to the table as well as far as innovation to the whiskey world?
Yeah, so indeed we have the know-how at every stage of the whiskey production, and we innovate at each stage. So first, the raw materials, the grain. We are like a big producer. We produce over 30% of the world's malted barley, I think.
Yeah, and the biggest companies in the world are actually in France.
So we know how to do that, and yet we use different kind of grain, like spelt. We have a whiskey made with 100% of malted corn, and we also have buckwheat. So
that's right. So Edu means buckwheat.
Edu means ed, it's for grain. Du, it's for black, so black grain. It means buckwheat. And this is not a real cereal, so this is very, very innovating. Just for you to know, it is really complex to work with buckwheat, and this is 4 times less profitable than the malted barley.
But it has kind of a very association with the area of Brittany.
Yeah, that's why. That's why they want to do like a product with a big regional identity. So that's why they use buckwheat, and this is very, very interesting.
So next step, brewing?
Yes, so we do have breweries dating from the 15th centuries, so we know how to do beer. But the interesting fact for this stage is we practice very long fermentation. I mean, in Scotland, fermentation...
Yeah, 2-3 days.
2-3 days. In France, could be 2 weeks.
Okay, wow.
So that's huge.
That's quite long, actually.
And this producing a lot of new kind of aroma, so this is very interesting.
Okay. Distillation, so obviously we have cognac, Armagnac.
Yes, distillation is interesting because we have a long tradition of distillation in France. We have the Armagnac, the Calvados, the cognac, also a lot of eau de vie in the east side of France.
fruit spirits.
Fruit spirits. And the fun fact is we use all that kind of still to produce whiskey. So some whiskey are made with fruit still or Armagnac stills or cognac stills. There is even one whiskey which is produced with still lavender still.
Okay.
Used to be used for perfume.
The last stage would be aging, so cask aging.
Yeah, so I think this is pretty obvious, but we have a lot of kind of cask in France.
Right.
Of course, we have the red wine and the white wine cask. By the way, the white wine it's always a success, especially with Condrieu. Gives excellent results. But we also use cognac barrel, Armagnac cask, Calvados cask, Banyuls cask, which is
kind of a French port, kind of.
From the south. And we also have the Pinot de Charonne cask, so like in this one. And this is very, very innovating, and this is quite tasty.
Yeah, it's the first time I saw one. Actually, you don't see it outside of France.
No, as far as I know, this is the only one that has been fully matured in Pinot de Charonne cask.
Okay, and but new casks as well, because we've got tons of forests that like Limousin or the Tronchet, and the Coopers. I mean, in the Cognac area, there's a lot of Coopers.
Yeah, and that's interesting because in French we have a word called terroir, and this is very important for whiskey producers to make something that show the regional style.
Yeah, so I mean, they do, for example, just like they do the buckwheat, they also have on this version Brocéliande. They use the oak from trees in the
this is a very, very good example. They want to use the forest from Brittany with the buckwheat from Brittany, so this is.
So in France, we maybe rely a little less on like the American oak coming from the bourbon industry, and and so then taking all these together, what do you say would be the kind of the final result, the French style? Is there a French style?
No, this is impossible to define. It's just like define the French gastronomy in one word.
Okay.
So there is a lot of different styles. It's more like a regional product. Because, like I said before, everybody wants to express the terroir. So whiskey is really different if it's made in Brittany or Alsace.
Actually, there's two protected geographical appellations for.
Yes, indeed, there
Brittany
is two different specifications. So that's already two very different styles. But there is also the Corsican style, the mountain style with Le Domaine des Hautes-Glaces. Only use mountain barley. So
Bordeaux, there's a few distilleries popping up there as well, no?
Yeah, and in Bordeaux they use, that's obvious, but they use wine cask from Bordeaux. So once again, it's very, very specific.
But flavor-wise, is there like, are they generally fruitier, or is there anything you can kind of give as a generalization?
No, not really. The fun fact is French whiskey lovers do like the peat aroma.
Okay.
So there is a lot of peaty French whiskey, but sadly we can't use French peat because it's protected. So we have to import peat from Belgium or Scotland. That's the only things that is not from our terroir.
Okay.
So maybe it's going to change in the few years. We never know.
All right. Well, Mathieu, thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Can I say one last thing?
Yeah, sure.
So we do have the best English accent, obviously, and we will have the best whiskey in the world.
No doubt about that. So yeah, check out his site at whiskyfrançais.com.
Yes, whisky-français.com.
We'll put the link in the description. And so we got a quick question for the comments. When do you think the French mainly consume their whiskey? Is it like during a meal, before, after? Let us know what you think. And if you like what you see, give it a thumbs up and follow the channel for more. All right? Cheers. Santé.
Bye. Au revoir.